So today, I want to share with you translation number 121 from Kyobpa Rinpoche's teaching to the assemblies, Sochu. 121, the title is Indivisible Bodhicitta, a teaching on profundity and vastness. Teaching on profundity and vastness. First of all, I think we should know that there is a lot of words like karma, samsara, nirvana, bodhicitta, these words that we hear a lot. A lot of times when we hear a lot about these words, sometimes we forget, what it actually means. Or in the first place, we never had a clear understanding of what it means. We think we know. Especially if our journey to Buddha Dharma has come along pathways that are not so direct, right? You read something when you were really young, this fiction called Siddhartha. Maybe some of you read, there's a fiction called Siddhartha. It's a very powerful story, but it's not exactly based on Buddhist view. It's a combination of Buddhist, Hindu, and the Romantics, the Western intellectual movement called the Romantics. So, such as, like Emerson and people like that also are coming from that tradition in the United States. And it's a particular view of, these mixed together. So it may or may not, be Buddha Dharma. So you read there, those seeds are planted already. So it's in your system, Then later, when you read, these words, you think you know what it means, but maybe not, So one of these terms is bodhicitta. And then when it comes to bodhicitta, even in the Tibetan context, it has several different meanings. Like it's used differently by different people. Again, overall, of course, it is. Overall, it's similar enough, but there are important differences, and we should be aware of that. And then especially, the way that Kyobpa Rinpoche uses bodhicitta, it is not just, for example, it is not just compassion. How often people conflate these two. You see someone who is very kind, you see some very, kind action, some very compassionate action. Then we say, oh, such strong bodhicitta. But that's not, definition of bodhicitta. Again and again, I've said, without love and compassion, there is no bodhicitta. That's for sure. Without love and compassion, for sure, there is no bodhicitta. Not possible. But love and compassion alone also doesn't make it bodhicitta. Clear this part? Without love and compassion, no basis for talking about bodhicitta. Love and compassion alone doesn't make it bodhicitta. So this particular teaching here will show us what is included in this topic of bodhicitta. And so when we say, the whole practice is basically the practice of bodhicitta, you can see that it is not just talking about compassion. So especially for Kyobpa Rinpoche, and this is following the influence of the Kadampa masters, of which Gampopa himself was a Kadampa monk. So Kyobpa Rinpoche, from Pamodrupa, from Gampopa, and Gampopa from his Kadampa background, especially emphasized looking at the entire path under the understanding of bodhicitta. So for example, in the Lojong tradition, which is like the pith instruction of the Kadampa lineage, Lojong. So like 7-point Lojong, it says the main practice is the practice of the two bodhicittas. First, absolute bodhicitta, then relative bodhicitta. So everything that we practice is about bodhicitta. So this is a very crucial topic to be clear in our understanding. So here, what is bodhicitta? Bodhicitta is indivisible, these two aspects, profundity and vastness. You can say deep and vast. Deep down, right? And high up, you can say that, vertical, and horizontally spreading in all directions. Yeah. Vertically, no end to how high, how deep. Horizontally, no end to how broad. These two unified is bodhicitta. So Om Swasti, Swasti, may it be auspicious, may it be. So this is like swastika, Hitler stole swastika. Swasti means to be well, not auspicious, to be well. May everything be well, wishing wellness. So it's a very common way to start text by uttering this mantra. May it be well. So here it's also, may this teaching that I'm going to give, Kyobpa Rinpoche is going to give, may it be well. May it go well. Om Swasti. At the feet of the Sublime Guru, I bow. I prostrate to. At the feet of the Sublime Guru. Wholeheartedly engender within one's mind stream love, compassion, and bodhicitta. So first, in this case, Kyobpa Rinpoche is going to talk about the vast aspect. The vast aspect then is relative bodhicitta. The profound aspect is absolute bodhicitta. Then also important then to understand, therefore in this context, when we say relative, we don't mean, like second class, absolute, first class. Here, absolute and relative means two sides of same coin. Not one side is better than another side. Yeah. Sometimes in the discussion about the two truths, the two ways of perceiving reality, sometimes absolute and relative has a sense of true. Absolute is the true view, and relative is mistaken. As in, on the relative level, you, like this morning, very good attendance, 26 of us. Yeah. Wait, maybe not 26. Sometimes Antonio has 2. His practice is, showing results. He's emanating Nirmana Kayas and Sambhoga Kayas. So, in the, what was I going to say? Now I forgot. Do you all remember what I was saying?
We're saying two sides of the same coin.
Yeah. So in some discussions, when talking about the two truths, right? Then absolute truth is always no problem. We always know what we're talking about. Relative truth, they say there are two types of relative truth. One is mistaken relative truth. One is simply relative truth. Yeah, one is mistaken relative truth. One is simply relative truth. So when it's simply relative truth, then it's also two sides of the same coin. Yeah? You need to see both sides. And the simply relative truth is the truth that says sentient beings perceive reality based on their karma, based on their karma, based on their kleshas. So everybody experiences things as they experience it. But when we want to emphasize that, and all these experiences are mistaken, then that's when relative truth is, the emphasis is the mistakenness of all the different relative truths. Then in another context, when Kyobpa Rinpoche talks about relative truth in a way that is not like mistaken, that is cause and effect. Unmistaken relative truth is cause and effect. Yeah, unmistaken. The workings of causes, cause and effect. That's unmistaken relative truth. That's a relative truth that will remain true. Even after we achieve Buddha, that truth remains true. Cause and effect. Not understanding cause and effect, that's a mistaken relative truth. So if we hold to be true ideas, understandings, situations that contradicts the working of cause and effect, those are mistaken relative truths. Here, coming back to this point, this relative truth is one side of the coin, not like a second-class truth. This relative truth. Not relative truth, this relative bodhicitta here. The vastness aspect. So it says, wholeheartedly engender within one's mind stream. And this is very technical Buddhist language, and sometimes in translation, I have wondered, should we keep it this technical or should we keep it more evocative, I think more evocative, you would say something like wholeheartedly, wholeheartedly, something like arouse, engender within yourself, within yourself, right? Technically, it should be translated like this: wholeheartedly engender within one's mind stream. But sometimes mind stream, we forget what it's talking about, right? It might seem like there is me, and then there's my mind stream. So my mind stream. And then you're like, mind stream, what does that mean? Basically it's saying, with your whole heart, within yourself, let love, compassion, and bodhicitta arise. Within yourself, let love, compassion, and bodhicitta arise. Yeah, I think in the larger book project for this set of teachings, at least right now, many things will change. I think maybe if it's in a larger book, it's better to translate these in a more heartfelt way rather than too technical. And then in the commentary, you can elaborate and say, so when we say here, wholeheartedly within yourself, let bodhicitta, let love, compassion, and bodhicitta arise. Then, in a commentary, it can explain what we say here, yourself, in the original, literally, it's mind stream. And we say mind stream because the Buddhist understanding of who we are is not a singular, unchanging thing, but it's a process. Yeah, it's dynamic. So it's like a stream. So the mind is like a stream. It's always flowing, 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 flowing. At no point in the life of this stream does anything remain fixed. The banks, right? The two sides of the stream, as water comes down, it's being modified. The water that is coming down is always new water, so to say, right? And all the creatures are always moving. So many things are always moving, right? So we call this a mind stream. But basically, if we don't want to be so technical, it's saying, wholeheartedly within yourself, let love, compassion, and bodhicitta arise. Arise towards sentient beings equal to space. So here, bodhicitta, in this place, when it comes up together like this, love, compassion, bodhicitta, then here, this bodhicitta means the vow, the resolve to become Buddha for the sake of all. Here, whenever it says love, compassion, bodhicitta, it's saying that resolve, that vow. Yeah. So that vow, may I become Buddha for the sake of all. So it needs to be powered by love and compassion. Okay? It needs to be powered by love and compassion. So these three, love, compassion, bodhicitta, is almost like you can say, like a tricycle. Kids, bicycle, tricycle. So tricycle has a front wheel, right? And two back wheels. So you need these three wheels. These two provide momentum. Front wheel provides direction. So the direction is this vow, which is based on understanding, right? To say that I want to be Buddha is to have understanding of what is the problem and what is the solution. So that's the front wheel of the tricycle. That's the vow. That's the resolve. Then it is provided by the momentum of the back two wheels. When you're pedaling, you're actually moving the back two wheels, not really so much the front wheel. The front wheel is providing this direction. So, love, compassion, and bodhicitta towards sentient beings equal to space. And that which has now arisen, which is bodhicitta, right? With the momentum of love and compassion, allows our physical, verbal, and mental actions to become inseparable with this bodhicitta. So that our body, speech, and mind, our actions will be consistent with our desire, our intention. So here also, is aspiration and action bodhicitta, which are the two aspects of relative bodhicitta. Yeah. And that which has now arisen, which is, okay, now, aspiration bodhicitta has arisen, then it will kind of bless, so to say, our body, speech, and mind, our physical, verbal, and mental activity, actions, to be always together with bodhicitta. Amazing and wondrous is this dharma, in which one works towards completely awakening, so that the beings of all worlds without exception may be happy and free from suffering. It is this that is known as great vastness. So this is relative bodhicitta. Then, suchness itself. Suchness is a Buddhist technical term. It's saying like isness. It's tatata, which is isness. What do you mean by is in English? Isness, meaning the way things are. Such, they are as such, they are like this. So meaning the reality. So suchness, in a less technical word, is reality itself. Reality itself is primordially birthless. There is no real existence to all that we experience, including ourselves. They are simply interdependently arising phenomena. And that's why primordially, meaning from the beginning, which is never, which is forever and never, is birthless. And that is not just out there. It is one's own Vajra mind. It is your own indestructible mind, which is unconditioned, uncompounded. So birthless, you can say, is sort of like a negation way of communicating what this is, as in it's without birth, it's never truly come into existence, but yet illusorily it arises. The unconditioned part is indicating the same thing, but in some ways you could say emphasizing more, like stating it more in positive terms. Unconditioned means uncompounded. Just like space is not compounded. Space has no sides to it. You don't say, you only say, this is front, this is back, this is left, this is right, when you have an object as a reference point. Space itself has no front, back, left, right, up, down. Only when there's an object. So space is uncompounded. And they say space is also birthless. But what is different between space and mind is that mind has awareness, the ability to know. Space doesn't have the ability to know. So space is used as an analogy frequently for this nature of mind. And this nature of mind is suchness itself. It is beyond the realm of speech, thought, concept, and expression. It cannot be fathomed by the conceptual mind. So our limited conceptual mind can never reach this nature of mind. You cannot think your way there. Then, I should say, within the world of Tibetan Buddhism, the different lineages kind of will have different emphasis on how useful thinking is. Gelugpa's on this end, thinking is way more useful. Kyobpa's on this end, thinking is completely useless. People think Nyingma is more on this end. No, no, no. Actually, Kagyupas are more on this end. Thinking is like really useless. Gelugpa, thinking is really useful. Like, you know, if you want to set like the two extremes, it's up to you, you know, how much you think what is important. But it is the style of the early Kagyupa masters, you know, to say, you know, like too much thinking will just get you in a mess. And in that sense, you know, when we go back to the earliest layer of the Buddha's teachings, I see that the Buddha also said that, you know. He says, this is, be careful not to produce a whole jungle of thoughts, a thicket of views, he says. Be careful, don't get stuck in a bramble, you know, like a thick, like rainforest style. Everything is growing into everything. Then all these views will mislead you. So it cannot be fathomed. It cannot be measured by the conceptual mind. It is thus known as deep profundity. Great vastness and deep profundity. Deeply profound. It is my request that you put into practice this oral instruction on profundity and vastness, these two aspects of bodhicitta, the absolute and the relative. Then he says, then Kyobpa Rinpoche says, as for the method, what method? As for the method on how to do this, how to put this into practice, he says, just ask this profound and vast Dharma itself. Just look at these two aspects itself. For any method that accords with this, it's just right, no matter how it is done. So you see here that he says, you know, method is secondary. As long as the method allows you to practice these two bodhicittas, then you can take which one, you know, whether it's Lojong, whether it's deity yoga, whether it's Mahamudra, whether it's, you know, it says it doesn't matter. For any method that accords with this Dharma, which with this teaching here, then it's just right, no matter how it is done. This precious gold powder of yours, I shall kindly take to heart. This last two lines might have something to do with this teaching was given after a disciple offered gold powder, powdered gold to Kyobpa Rinpoche. It's said that especially when we request bodhicitta teachings, we should give the very best that we can give. Because that is what bodhicitta is worth, so to say. We cannot just lip service, oh, worth so much, worth so much, worth so much. Oh, wow, so much, so much. Oh, the book on bodhicitta is $90. No, 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 no. It's just too expensive. You know. Let me, you know, see, I need to order a new 60-inch TV. You know, it's like, oh, that's really important. You know, I need a 60-inch TV, you know, a book on bodhicitta, you know, on Gongchik, you know, $90. Oh, no, 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 I don't think so. Then we say, oh, bodhicitta is so precious, so precious, so precious, you know. Not going to work. Not going to work. So in the past, you know, they offer gold. And we know from Kyobpa Rinpoche's life that a lot of wealth came through him. But he himself didn't spend it on himself. He's always doing these Dharma projects I mentioned before, you know. He built this magnificent stupa for his teacher. First, he built it in Drigungtil. Then he went back to his teacher's seat and built another one there. And this stupa is not like the stupas that we see now. It's like, it's indoors, but with like full, complete, you know, statues, right, at every layer of the stupa. Those of you who have gone to India, especially in South India, and then those of you in Malaysia, you know, like Hindu temples, they built, you know, on the outside, many layers of like a mountain with all the gods, statues of the gods up all the way on the external of many Hindu temples, especially South India. North India, you don't see this so much. But Hindus in Malaysia are mostly from South India. So we see in Malaysia, you know, this style of building their temples on top of the temple structure, almost like a stupa. It's like this mountain. And then it's all the different gods, you know, on levels. Then the highest gods, of course, on the very top. So the stupa that Kyobpa Rinpoche built for his teacher is this style, but it's bronze and gold and silver and all the precious jewels, you know. This is called the Tashi Gomang, the auspicious many-doored stupas. And he hired Nepali craftsmen to come from Nepal to Tibet to craft this magnificent stupa. There's like the first one he built, over, I think, 2,000 statues. Big and small, big about this big, small about this small, about 2,000 statues. So the gold, the offerings that he received, you know, he put into things like this. He got text copied, he got text printed. Back in those days, you know, printing text is not so cheap. It's hard, and he spent a lot of money there. Then he gave his money to people going into retreat. And encourage them, go into retreat, you know. So this precious gold powder of yours, I shall kindly take to heart. It says like, I accept, you know, with appreciation, with deep appreciation, I will kindly take to heart. Yeah, so this is a very brief, but it covers so much ground. It reminds us again and again, you know, what are we talking about when we talk about bodhicitta? Then we're talking about absolute and relative. Then we're talking about wisdom, the absolute, the profound. Love and compassion as momentum to keep us on track with our commitment to become Buddhists for the sake of all. That's relative. Bodhicitta. Any questions or comments? Okay, so we'll take a quick break and then we'll have Gongji. Oh, very busy morning now, 28 people.